So today's subject is Fontaines D.C. Apparently you have a good story around photographing this band.
Well, good is an interesting word, more of a nightmarish story, which you'll have to wait until the end of the video to find out what happened.
Okay.
The shoot was for a magazine called Télérama. Brilliant magazine. I get such interesting commissions. I had to photograph Jean Julien, who's the French artist who did the graphic of the Eiffel Tower that was merged with the peace symbol. I think it was after Charlie Hebdo and the attacks that happened on that satirical magazine in Paris. I photographed Alan Moore, who is the writer of Watchmen. Also photographed Dave Gibbons, but I think that he's the guy that drew the pictures. That was for The Guardian. But Alan Moore, that was a very incredibly memorable shoot. The whole time he was smoking a massive spliff. And so, by the end of the shoot, I could barely operate my camera.
Were you smoking it with him?
Well, no, indirectly,
Okay.
secondhand. Those days are over. I mean, in the past, I might have done. But basically, this magazine just gave me really, really good subjects. And when I looked online and had a look at the music on YouTube of Fontaines D.C, I could see that they were worth photographing. Really cool band, really great music, kind of 90s influenced, a bit like New Order or something like that. Visually, really striking. Each individual band member, they were all disparate members, and they all had their own unique sort of visual style. So a great subject, a subject that I thought I need to find the right location. And this is where the problems started. I came to the conclusion that I would hire the bowling alley that exists up near the Arsenal football stadium, I think in Archway or Finsbury Park. It was in Finsbury Park. I thought, booked it for the day of the shoot. I sort of agreed that they would get some publicity and I would give them some images for their socials. Job done. The person I spoke to was adamant that I wouldn't have any problems. So on the morning of the shoot, thinking I'll just head over to Finsbury to photograph this band, really cool location. Just check the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And to my absolute horror, they have no recollection of me coming around, no booking. I sort of panicked and I thought of who lives near Finsbury Park. And I thought of Annie, my old assistant, who lives in Stoke Newington.
Annie
Collins, brilliant photographer. I thought, I'll ring her, see if she can come up with something. And she suggested a little kind of weird community building on the estate where she lives. The furthest thing from a photographic studio than you could imagine. But I thought, when you have nothing, you'll take anything. So I just went along with it. But what I did do was get Annie to assist me and meet me there and bring along Cupid, her little Chihuahua dog. Because I thought, if the location is boring and mundane, then Cupid can be my ace in the hole. He can potentially spice up a kind of humdrum backdrop.
Yeah, Chihuahuas
are always appealing. They're so ridiculous. Yeah, and the band are kind of fey and otherworldly, and Chihuahuas, they're not kind of like a bunch of macho guys. So I thought it could work, and it did. It did.
So we'll put those pictures up. So let's get into the photography. So you're in this community
shed. So there was a curtain that had sort of like these stripes, a bit Paul Smith. Paul Smith was into stripes. And so I used that, mostly available light, as a backdrop. It's quite difficult with 5 people, but they, as I said, were all really photogenic. So I used the stripy backdrop, and then I pulled back. I shot them all individually, and then I pulled back and I got a group shot with a piano on one side, and then one of the band members holding Cupid in a very nonchalant way, a bit like the David Bailey picture, the most natural thing in the world, holding this tiny little dog. It was a good example of how retouching can come to your aid, because there were lots of unphotogenic sort of signs which I was able to remove in post.
So maybe we can show the before and after.
Yeah, so I sort of made a silk purse from a sow's ear. Maybe not a silk purse, but a sort of a nice purse that you might have bought from John Lewis.
Okay, cool. So Any other pictures?
Yeah, so there was a school next door, and so we climbed over this fence, and I used the sort of municipal sort of sports areas
So
to.
you broke into a school.
Well, yeah, I guess so. You have to do what you got to do. I mean,
Okay.
that's the thing with my job, is that no one remembers the fact that you broke into a school. I remember doing Jeff Goldblum, and I was in the Dorchester Hotel, and there was a mirror that was in the way, and because I wanted to use this red flock wallpaper, and I was taking it down, and the PR was getting really agitated and angry and sort of saying, "You can't do it, you can't do it." I had my little Swiss Army penknife and I was unscrewing it, and it screwed the whole mirror and took it off. And I said to her, "Look, in 20 years' time, no one's going to remember the fact that I took that mirror down. The only thing that's going to be left is a beautiful photograph." And that's true.
And that's what happens.
So I didn't damage any of the fences, and the lads were all quite athletic. It wasn't a big deal, sort of a bit of light trespass. You end up with some interesting pictures, and they work well with the sort of, the kind of ordinariness of the band, a bit like Jarvis. There's an ordinariness to them, a kind of, authenticity that worked well.
Gotcha. So you said each of them have quite a unique visual fingerprint signature. Do you want to explore that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the lead singer, he reminded me of Ian Curtis of New Order, because he had this kind of ordinariness, but this extraordinary quality at the same time. So something about him, he was kind of good looking in a very proletariat way. He didn't look like the product of generations of good looking people marrying other good looking people. He looked like someone who was kind of rough, but just happened to be good looking.
Got lucky.
Yeah, got lucky in the gene pool of life. And then the others were, they reminded me of people from Depeche Mode or whatever. They were they had a lot of influences going on. And then later that year, they were voted the best band in the world by the NME. And I wasn't surprised at all. They're really intriguing. And I've been a fan ever since.
Cool. And were they nice? Were they?
Yeah, they were nice. The only thing that I will say is that the guy holding Cupid, they were all nice, but he wasn't feeling well. He had, I'm sure, COVID, and he gave me COVID, which was pretty irritating. But
That could be a good title.
he gave me COVID. Yeah, I don't know if he's the bassist,
Okay.
but he definitely gave me whatever he had. And
It wasn't nice.
Yeah. So that was really kind of the nightmare results that we referred to at the beginning of the video.
But yeah. What, that you got COVID? Or?
Yeah, I got COVID as a result of this.
I thought the nightmare was that you had to find a new.
Fontaines D.C. gave me COVID. There's your thumbnail.
There we go. Cool. And here's some footage of little Cupid.
Yeah, he's a great little dog. I mean, when I go and stay with Annie, quite often we're all watching, Geordie Shore or some crap that Annie tends to like to watch, sort of disposable television.
You're outing Annie here.
Yeah, and I'll be sitting on the sofa and I'll sort of adjust my position and inadvertently squash him, and he'll sort of bite a little bite on the bottom. But terrific little dog, and a great prop.